Hi guys, I want to do a follow-up video to the last video that I did with the Prey versus Predator, or and the Predator. I want to talk about, like, there's some things, it's really interesting if you watch, I wish I knew what her name was. I think it's Andrea something, but she does like micro expressions. And I actually brought a book, but I haven't read it yet. I have a collection that I'm working on. But there's her, and then there's like the behavioral guy that I've kind of learned from. But it wasn't until like I first noticed it. I was in this work environment, this new work environment, and this girl, I was not crazy about her because she just kept talking about money and like how much, they're thinking about buying a bigger house and they have a pool and something about cars and putting her kids through college. And she just kept kind of like what do you call that? Like naming all these like high, um, price tag item. Like she just was really talking about her money. And I just felt like that's what you're leading with. It seemed kind of, ugh. And then we were talking in a group. This is when I just was starting at a workplace, just brand new. And then she had joined our group and she was talking. And one of my coworkers, her son was in the Philippines. And so she was waiting to, I think it's either paperwork or I think it was paperwork. I don't know if it was money issues, but I think it was like waiting on paperwork to bring him over to Canada. And so this lady had made a very like, is it tacky? Like just a out of color remark. Just pointing out the fact that this lady's son wasn't with her. Like it was just, I can't remember what it was, but I just, when you remember something, you're like, ugh. Like I remember, ugh, at that moment. And I remember it was because of this. You made a comment about her son and it was very off color and it was just not very thoughtful at all. It was the opposite. It felt like intentionally cruel, but was painted with like laughter and lightness to make it not seem like what it was. And I knew something was off about this lady and I found out more later on. But so that was something when I recognized like how people can be so cruel, like just in how they're speaking. And then another thing with the micro expressions, I remember talking to this lady, and when I had to address her at times, like, and if we were with somebody else or someone else was there, and she had to smile at something I had said or that something was being said, and she was looking at me, but she smiled with her mouth, but her eyes stayed exactly the same, like that. Yeah, like her eyes didn't move. And when I think of things, like when I think of like funny things, like when I watch baby videos, when I think of my kids, when I watch my dogs doing funny dog things, like there's a joy that comes to my eyes, I'm like, oh my God, that makes me laugh, that makes me smile. This was not what I was receiving from this lady. And I remember thinking, that's really weird. She's smiling so big, but her eyes, there's nothing in her eyes there. And it was such a weird moment. And I'm going to do another video about, I've experienced someone else trying to bring me into their, like trying to create an emotional connection with their eyes. I'll do it because it's these people out there. And then, what's interesting is like I had a family member where she wanted to stay overnight with me. And then we went out and then she's like, oh, we should take a selfie. Like, I'm not a selfie girl. It just feels weird, like smiling at nothing. I don't know. Like I know I do it because I feel like I have to for certain social media things, but I would really not prefer it unless I'm like, oh, this is a good hair day. Yeah. And I don't get a lot of them. So I could see like making the most out of a good hair day. Hello. But it's not something I go to. It's not like something I like, and so I don't mark where I am. I don't go out to eat and take a picture there. And like whoever does, that's your thing. It's just not my thing. And so I remember taking a picture, and then I don't think I was on her Facebook, but somebody else that was, and I saw the picture, and like she looked miserable. It's almost like in the picture, like she was in the front and I was in the back, and I was smiling because I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'm out and making the best of it. And she had this look like it wasn't a smile. It looked like she was tolerating me. Like she was just like she was forced. You know what I mean? Like I'm out with her. I have to be here. This is what it, like, that's what it, and then I recognized like another photo of her. She was out with somebody else because she was visiting the area, the province. She was visiting the province, and she went to go see like one of her like exes, like he was from like her past, and they like she really saw him quite highly. And in that picture, you could not pin that grin down. Like it was like ear to ear. You know, her face is red, so I think she'd probably had a couple drinks because that's just how she is. And she was just like ecstatic to be there with his family and him. And there's more information to that, but I don't really need to add to it. But like, yeah, it was just really odd. And so it's interesting because there's something about during our visit that she was here, like I got the information I needed to find out who she was. And yeah, so like if you look at some of these people's faces, like pay attention to like if people are taking selfies. But this is also you know, in the selfies, like when you know you're not, like I had this girl at work who she was the one who was a selfie queen. She's constantly like is that your full-time job, selfie, you know? And a bunch of us were taking the bus all together, so it was a funny picture because there's a bunch of us posties, but like it was the worst picture. She took a couple, but like the worst picture of me, and I'm just like, oh my god. And I'm just like, it is what it is, because I don't really put them, but it was odd. And I later found out that lady was actually went out of her way to gossip behind my back to me about other co-workers, because I was friends with other co-workers. And after I left that workplace, when I retired from it to start my own thing, I called her out on her lies. And then so it was interesting. So other people that like I wasn't really friends with, but they were more friends with, like they just dropped off like for no reason. Like we didn't have an issue. And you know, I did that too sometimes, where I would clear up my Facebook. So I don't really care either way, but I just found, yeah, pay attention to the timing of things. Especially when you call somebody out, pay attention to that. When you ask somebody about something and you insinuate something about a person, like that's going to start to show their true colors as well. So it's not just the looks in their face. It's like, there's a lady I used to work with the one that, you know, when she smiled with her mouth but not her eyes, another of those workers in that place, she would, she took a picture of me without my knowing it and put a little Santa hat on me. And I could see how bad my hair was. So bad then. It was very greasy at the top. Even like I would wash it that day and it'd be really greasy along the roots and really brittle on the ends. So I've had a lot of like, my hair health is getting better since then. But this was in like 2023, 2024. So it's taken a while. But I found that odd. And then she showed me that she had taken a picture of one of her other coworkers doing something. So this is like a thing that she does. She takes Snapchats. I don't know how that all works. To me, it seems like I thought only like high school girls did that. I didn't know grown women use it. Like I've just never used it, so I don't know much about it. There was a time where I caught her, like her phone was up like this. So like if you're watching, if I'm sitting at dinner, at lunch, you know, in the lunchroom, my you know, my phone's gonna be like this, and I'm looking down at it. That's how she's sitting, right? Her phone was like, I'm trying to hold her like this. And as soon as I looked up, her phone went down. That's the timing of it. And so I was like, that's weird. And so after I waited, I didn't call her in the lunchroom. I waited till we were by ourselves on our job, you know, starting our job again after lunch. And I asked her about that. And I said, I think you were recording me at lunch again. And just so you know, I'm not a fan of that. Like, I know you've done it in the past before, and I just want to let you know that I don't like being recorded. I don't like my picture being taken. And she's like, I wasn't doing that. And she was. But it wasn't just like, you know, because we had had issues in the past, and we had agreed that if we ever came across something that we didn't like about each other, like we were going to talk it out instead of just leave it ongoing without a discussion. And because, which, you know what, when I'm on. This girl is like, I have a, like, what do you call that? Like a sixth sense for these people now that behave this way. So, and I used to doubt myself. It's so, when you look back, you're like, why did I doubt myself? And anyways, she got super defensive. And then she made it a point to, like, she kept coming over into my area to get like supplies, but like she had the angry face on and she was like kind of slamming stuff and she was angry. And I was like, are you upset? I said, yeah, I'm upset. You accused me of recording me. But like I did. I caught her recording me. She was recording me. Whether it was just for a picture or a video, she was recording me. And it's just like, see, by speaking the truth, you get like, you know, the result of it. And she's like pissed off. And, you know, this is a person who, you know, makes accusations about me, but like once you try to have a conversation about her, like she gets unhinged. And the fact of the matter is, I'm just calling out the truth, and she is pissed off, and she's the one who's getting loud, and she's getting elevated for something that I caught her doing. And she's 50 plus. She's a 50 plus woman recording people at lunchtime when they're unaware of it. That is such an odd behavior. That's why I say, like, it seems like that would be more like a high school or maybe like public school behavior. And then, so like, remember, like we're watching people's faces and things, but it's also their behavior. So like, she was getting agitated and storming around. So I asked her about that. We had the conversation. She started getting loud with me, and I told her, you didn't like that. You know, don't do that to me. Don't talk to me like that. Like I had to bring it down. She's talking over me and all this stuff. And then later that day, we were on afternoon shift, and the night shift came on, and I could see her like animated. And to be honest, I don't know if I've had a couple issues like that with her, so I don't remember if it was this time, but I've seen her like, she'll go and you can see her leave her job and she'll come back, and it's like, you know, she was talking to someone in the quality office because they're closed, and like, you know, all her go-to friends, like she's updating them on what just happened, but it's not accurate. But it doesn't matter because they're not coming to ask me. You know, those people that those middlemen aren't coming to talk to me and be like, hey, you know what, so-and-so just said this, or, you know, they're not getting the other side of the story, and they don't care about the other side. So that's where like they're with them. That's, you know, if you need to put into groups, those people are with that. If they're not asking your side, they're not for you, they're for them. And so that's it can suck because you hoped that you're maybe in a new situation trying to get to know new people or whatever, and it turns out that it's just not the case, and these people are all very similar. And in this environment, they all were very similar, and in one way or another. And then, so yeah, so like I could see, without hearing what she was saying, this makes me laugh, without knowing what she was saying, I could see her body language, and like she was, because it's just out of nowhere, when that person just show up, now she's all animated. Nothing happened. She just animated angry. So what I noticed too is like when you observe certain things, like that lady who didn't know me, and it's just getting feedback because she works on minutes. I've never talked to her before, but she is now unkind, and she's giving me dirty looks when she walks by, and she's kind of like trying to like intimidate me, like I give a shit. Like, is she rough around the edges? Yeah. Does she have nothing to lose? Probably not. Do I? Yeah, I do. So like that's where these people like thrive, is because they're like, you know what, I'm gonna intimidate you, and you know, I have no problem like physically touching you, whether it be an aggressive or sexual manner, because they got nothing to lose, and they don't, well, that they realize yet, but they just think they're not going to get caught. They think they're in the right, and they think they're like the head honcho of the area. And then you think, like, outside of this building and outside of these groups that they create, like, they're really nothing, you know. Like, I only have to be civil because I want to keep my job. If I don't want to keep my job, I don't have to be civil anymore. You know, I don't need to keep quiet about this stuff. I don't need to, you know, keep our secrets in the factory. And so these people would like go around, and like you can just see, and then of course they're looking over at you. So that's something I picked up on. It's like their body behavior, and so that other girl that doesn't smile with her eyes, I would see her doing similar things, and I'm like, guys, I can't hear them, but I can see like they're talking about me, and like I'm not looking like this. I'm, you know, they can't see my eyes on them, but I can see what they're doing. I can see their body language. And another thing is, okay, there's another thing I notice about people who are not for me as well, is like, so it's interesting because in that same environment, there was a group of Filipino workers there. And it's interesting because some of these people would be like, oh, Filipinos are the nicest people. And it's like, I mean, they kind of have a very kind culture, I'm sure. But at the same time, like, I don't like to put labels and blanket statements on people, because I've experienced people within that community that are not very kind. And so just to say all Filipino people are kind is an odd thing, because like all Filipino people are humans. And so like as humans, we are our experiences, not really, you know, our lifestyles in a certain way, like if that makes sense. you know, and well, a majority could be, you know, because they have certain belief systems that they're raised in their home, and their community. I have experienced the other side of things like that, to where, you know, I'm not going to get into all my experiences that, but with this one, um, there was a group of Filipinos that would sit at the table at lunch, and they would all speak in their language at lunchtime, which is fine. Like that's your, you know what, that's your, you guys are sitting with your group, and you know that's your preference to speak your own language in that environment. But it was odd because there are times when they would also speak that their language on the work floor, which I didn't appreciate, because like I'm part of the group too, and now you're excluding me, and you guys are discussing the project, but I'm not getting it. You're not discussing the project with me, and I don't know what you're saying. So that's like like you're excluding me when I'm here to work too, and so it was odd. That seemed really kind of inconsiderate, and then at the same time, it was like. At lunch, I'd be sitting right beside them, and they would whisper. And it would just be me and the table of the Filipino people all together. So I'm like, but if you're speaking in your language, why are you whispering? Because it's just me and them. Do you know? So it's that when you're saying something you don't want someone else to hear, it was an odd thing. So like it felt like, okay, like are you talking about me right now? Because like why are you whispering? Because I don't know what you're saying anyways, because I don't speak your language. So why are you now whispering? Like that's an odd, to me, I thought that was an odd behavior. So watch. I also recognize that when people whisper, like if they're normally talking about things that they normally wouldn't care if you heard, and then now they're whispering in that environment, that is something like, it's not all, these things are like not just go based off this, but like it's a collection of information. Because the same lady that was in this Filipino group, like I then noticed she was doing like the fake laughter. So she was okay to talk to pass the time, but at some point, when I was telling her about good things that were happening in my life, even though I would listen to her about the wins that she was having with her son, when he did get to Canada and they were having like really great experiences, I was happy for her. But then when I was expressing like some great things that are happening for me and my kids, you could see that, oh, and it wasn't an excitement. It was I don't like hearing this. I don't like hearing good things about you. But she's smiling at me, and I would say stuff, and sometimes she would laugh, but like the laughter, she would laugh the first time and it seemed authentic, but like as we go throughout our shift, like, you know, I'd wait for a bit and whatever, and then like it would just be like fake. Like, you don't have to laugh. I'm not offended. Everything I say is not funny. I'm just trying to make the best of a situation, you know, make it more enjoyable, and you know what I mean? So like if that's not funny to you, like I don't need your fake laugh. That's not gonna make me feel good. So it's weird. It's like I'm picking up on like the fake laugh, and then she had the lack of like you know, joy, because I felt before that we had good moments between us, and she was the one who, when it all came out with the man who touched me and was sexually harassing me, like when I came back after a stress leave, I thought we were good because we got along, and this group, when I came back, didn't make eye contact with me, didn't talk to me. And I even went out of my way to talk with them. I'm like, like she would go out of her way to not even ask me to help her carry stuff over. And I'm like, we're on the job. I can be mature. Like, you know, and when I talked to them, they had mentioned like the man in the group with the men, you know, they're all coworkers and friends outside of work. They had mentioned something about what had happened with that sexual harasser. And that's why they were avoiding me. So now and then I would see them, like they wouldn't laugh with me anymore, and now they were laughing with that guy in that group, and I'm just like, that's kind of gross to me. And that's, you know, I associated, like he seemed to have, the one guy seemed to have such great, like, you know, he's very polite, and he loved to bring things in. Like he used to love to cook homemade stuff and bring it in. He would bring lettuce in from his garden, and I'm just like, you know, because I like bringing stuff in too. So I'm like, and I like home cooked. So I'm like, I feel like we mesh. And we don't. So there's that other thing about like making, you know, accepting, just because making assumptions about someone, uh, is not great, you know, because just because like you have similarities, like you like to cook things from scratch and you like to do this and like to do that, it doesn't necessarily make that a good person. And I'm not saying it makes that person a bad person. I'm just saying, like, you know, it's something, he was more ruled by fear and finances than justice and fairness. And the thing is, what they don't understand is this is a whole shift that I dealt with on the afternoon shift. It wasn't just like the Filipino group, it was like a large number of other people. Um, uh, like I saw when, because of, there's some in the group that their English wasn't as great, that they would get blamed for mistakes. And I no longer have your back anymore because you don't have mine. And the idea for me is like we all rise together and we fight against these predators, but that was not what happened. It's like, you know what, they turned on me. And even other people in the shift that didn't know what was happening didn't talk to me about what was going on. Like they would not meet my eye. And I would say hello, and I'm like, sometimes my voice is quiet, so I'd say it again, and like, nope, they are not saying hello to me. They are ignoring me based on what they've heard when I was off on stress leave from the sexual harasser and his cronies and his group. They decided to believe what they had said instead of talking to me straight and knowing, you know, I'd been kind to these people. I'd talked to them. I've gone on my way, you know, and just like that, no sort of conversation to be like, what's going on here? And so like you could say like maybe they're acting, like I said, out of fear, but that's not okay. That's not, you know what, because the thing is, they're going to be next. These people that fall in line, the enablers, like you're next. Like I'm out of the building and you don't have anyone else to fill that spot. You guys are going to be targeted. You guys are going to be talked about. Your work is going to be fucked up with. They're going to turn, like I had one of the guys in the environment, he used to drink on the job and he used to fuck with people's machines intentionally, but no one would call him out on it because like, you know, it's like the gray area. You can't prove it. And I caught him a number of times and I called him out. But I can't do it by myself. And so it's like, you know what? I had to leave that environment. And I learned a lot there about like assumptions I made about people and being friendly to your face and how they're backstabbing you behind your back. And about trusting coworkers. And I don't like to put like a label on people, and I don't like to make an assumption about people just because. And so I think this really helped me where I had some assumptions about individuals, and it was just like, unfortunately, it was where I was shown that I was over trusting, and you just think like even in this environment in regards to the sexual harassment, um, there's people who you assume are women and they're going to have your back and they're going to recognize this kind of abuse, and you think they're going to fight because it's 20 at this time it was 2022, and you think we don't accept this kind of shit anymore. And I had all the, you know, all the receipts, but like nothing. And so I really learned a lot in that environment about reading people. It wasn't just like their faces, but it's like their behavior. I don't know if this is helpful. There's more to it too. Is like it wasn't just a body language, but it was like, you know what, telling who's who. Okay, so there's a person who I thought was more enlightened in this group, and I enjoyed conversation with him, and he made the day go by better because like we had similar things to talk about, and I thought he understood what I was saying, but he just pretended to. And so that was one thing I would start to recognize. Like he would say that me too, but his actions didn't show me too as well, right? And he'd like to be like the devoted dad, like daughter dad. Is that what you call it? Like where he's like, you know, I'm a daughter dad, and I would do anything for my daughter. And he used to talk only about his daughter, never about his son, hardly, unless I asked questions about his son. And I feel bad for his son, and because I feel like his daughter was the golden child. And so he really played it off like he's just so emotionally in tune with women because he's just so attached to his daughter, and you're just like, ugh. And I fell for it. And yeah, he really tried to play like he was like the counselor of the area. But when I started falling out, he was close, and I thought he was just close in proximity, like because he worked with that later lady who doesn't smile, with her eyes. She was very envious of me. She would go out of her way to try to keep us separate. And which at first I was like, that's a red flag. And then when I had talked to him about the issues I was having with her, that I didn't disclose in this video, but in another video I'll do, he stopped visiting and conversating with me, and he distanced himself, and he started taking more her side. And then it got to a point where I realized these people were not just coworkers, and they were not just friends. They were in a relationship, and I knew it because I'd seen certain things early on. And I'm like, no, because I was, you know what? It was a new start for me. So I didn't want to see, this is the thing. Like, I remember a situationship, he would say, don't bring, like, you're putting, like, that's your ex. Don't put your past on me. And that's what I felt like I was like having a new start. And the spiritual community really tells you, like, oh, like, you passed this test, you closed this chapter, now you get a new beginning. That's such a load of crap. The idea is you got new information, and now you can add this to your resume of life, and now you have something else to help you maneuver life, right? But you're still going to experience these people, and that is so, like, even saying it out loud sounds stupid. So maybe that's another trick. Like, if you need to say something out loud, maybe that's helpful to be like, just in recognizing how delusional these ideas can be. Like I said, like the one with religion saying, like, our Father in heaven is going to burn us in hell. Like that, when I say that out loud, that is just like ridiculous. And when I hear, like, women, wife, obey your husband, like shit like that, like, obey. That is for children to obey parents, because it's like trying to prevent your kid from running out into the road when they're 3. Obey your parents so you don't hurt yourself. This is not in regards to a grown-ass woman obeying her grown-ass husband that is meant to be her peer. Obey your peer? What the fuck? That does not make sense when you say it. So there's a lot of things where, in my experience, I'm just learning a lot of, like, different belief systems and assumptions that I had. So I don't know if I'm labeling this video correctly, but I think it's helpful. And what I recognize is that man that I thought was different, that I thought was spiritual and elevated and positive, and like he seemed to have, like, I recognize that a lot of people went to him to solve problems, but he didn't have any answers. He was like just as lost as the rest of them. He just knew how to fake it better. And he just had a better costume. You know, like when you get like those shitty, like, polyester, like, you know, like very minimal, like Walmart costume, and then you can get a costume from like those costume stores that are like, you know, they're more solid, the fabric is better, you know, the details are more better, and maybe get like better quality to, like, the wig. If it's a wig, the hair's not falling out as you open it out of the package. This guy was like, his costume was from a costume store, and like the other people, their costume was from Walmart. And so that's where it made me think that this guy is different. But then when I recognized that he was like, you know what, where I'm like, this is where I recognize who's for me and who is not. Like, I'm there because I have to be there, but I didn't want to be there. I had failed at my business. And so my goal is to work from home, not from a factory. And because there are other things I want to do from home, and that's going to allow me to free up my time to do other things too, and live my life the way I want to live it. And so I thought this guy was like on his way there because he was an artist. And so I'm like, oh, he's doing what he loves. He's a creative and he's getting money for it. So I thought, I put you up on a pedestal. I want to learn from you. You know, you're doing something I'm not. So I think I should be able to learn from you. And what I didn't realize is he just got clients from being schmoozy and charming and fake. That's sellout energy. What happens when he wants to become authentic? And even his artwork, when I started looking at it, it felt like he was taking and copying other people's work, and it really lacked depth. And I'm not a professional at all. I'm just saying, based on what I saw, I'm like, And then I would see other stuff online where I'm like, this is really grabbing me. This is making me feel some sort of way, and this pulls me in. But his was just like, it's a drawing. And so it's interesting because at the time I was like really impressed because he was making money doing what he loves. And so I thought, this is one of my people. And it turned out like he was voluntarily not only spending time with this person who was a coworker, but he was good friends, I realized, with her. And then, because I'll go into another video about this, and how I became aware of this. And And then I realized they've been sleeping with each other for a long. They try to make it seem like it just started like at the end of the year, but there were times when they came out of rooms and from areas of the workplace where while I was not there to witness it, which I don't want to be, I'm I would say 99.5% certain that they just came from doing the dirty either in the office or the back area. And because when you think about why are you going back there, why do you need two people to go in there, like it's really odd. They were following everyone around because he used to follow me around. And so like when I said no, this is inappropriate because this man was married, and I'm just like, I thought we were gonna get a friendship out of this. And to be like, was he attractive? Yes. And so that, for me moving forward, like if I feel an attractive, I thought like I enjoy your face, and I enjoy spending time with you. And I realized like he was having marital issues and he was married. So for me, I thought, well, I just have to maintain boundaries and this should be okay. I realized in that time that I no longer will build friendships with married men, because like for me, when I think about being married in that connection, like it makes sense to be friends with other married couples. And it also makes sense like I just don't think I'm gonna have enough time to, I don't know, it just seems like married men that have too much time for single women, and like recognizing how that could be a temptation for them as well. Married men who are invested in their connection aren't going to want to tempt themselves or put themselves in those dangerous positions, in my mind. Like I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but it just seemed like a bad idea for me. And then even thinking back, like saying it now, like that would be a bad position for him. And there is a thing as emotional cheating as well. And so it was getting to a point where I thought I could build a friendship with this man, but then I realized there's a lot of things that are off about him that don't make sense and that weren't adding up. And that gray area, that confusion, was what made me say, okay, I got to pull myself back. And I messaged him to say, I don't want to message anymore. And then and I don't want to be involved in the drama, because this girl who doesn't smile, I had realized they're a lot closer than they were claiming to be. And remember I said she was trying to create distance from us. That's why I thought she was just possessive of him as a coworker and for attention at the workplace. But I realized like there's something deeper. And then I also recognized where they were friends, because I saw like a message for the birthday from her, and then the year after that there's no message for the birthday. And just from my experience, in my immaturity before with a situationship, I would like friend and unfriend this man who was constantly playing me with other women. And that was kind of my limit. When I got so passionate about it, like I was just so like hurt by like, oh, you're doing it again, I would like unfriend. But there was some sort of addictive connection there with me to that person at that situationship at the time. And so when I saw that they were doing this weird like Facebook unfriend friend, and yeah, I was looking, I was investigating, because I'm like, something's off here. And I don't want to invest my time in people if I feel like there's something off there. And I don't want to be around like if either you're married or you're not, like what is going on here. And then I realized that they had that sort of weird passionate disconnect, because I'm like, if you're close friends and you're friends at work, why aren't you friends on Facebook anymore? That's weird, because that's in the public. What's going on there? That's an odd behavior. So like, is there something like, did his wife catch them before? Is this like a previous, like they'd been together, I think, before I met him? So that's where I felt like some weird shit's going on. And then like she was being overly aggressive towards me and possessive towards him. So I'm like, this is weird. Because I can understand. I've seen this like in the workplace where, women are possessive of the emotional supply they get from men if they're not getting it from their husbands at home, and vice versa, And so, there was something there where I felt that was off. And then, so the point of the story is, this is like recognizing, things in your environment too. But not only that, but where I thought he was different than her, they actually mirror each other. And I thought, poor him, because I recognized her first. Right away, I recognized her first. And so I kept making excuses for him. And I don't know exactly all the reasons, because I'm not a psychiatrist or anything. I don't study all this stuff. I just know from my experiences and my patterns what the information I've gained from that. But it's odd, because I was willing to make more excuses for him than I was for her. And even other men, I don't know if this is like from my upbringing of feeling like I can't voice my concerns, and like maybe being punished as a child from my father, and so it doesn't feel safe to like call out men because of like the potential aggression and anger that could, and then with women it feels like there's a lot of like fake to my face and backstabbing behind my back. um, I don't know. I haven't thought that deeply on that, but yeah. So what I did get was, and so that's where the spiritual community will talk about this situation being like her being a karmic and he being my person. He's not my person. He's reflecting some wounds that I have about a lack of boundaries with myself and other people, and having to revise that even tighter, and being naive that I could be friends with a married man, and that's not really an appropriate position to be in, especially when I start noticing things within them. But also, like, if I feel like this is tempting, if I'm attracted to him in any sort of way, that for me says, you know what, you need to back. That's dangerous. You don't need to be in there. You don't need to tempt yourself. Because even when you talk about like him being, in a, like, I don't want to ever interfere with someone's marriage. So if you're in an issue with your marriage, like I step back because I want you to figure that out. I don't want to be the cause of someone's like breakdown of like, you guys need to figure that out with any sort of distraction. I didn't want to be a distraction in someone else's relationship, because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me. Like, if you're trying to work on things, the last thing you need is like, while I've experienced Jezebel energy, I have seen myself be in that energy, and it wasn't intentional, and I wasn't aware of it. So I had to recognize, well, am I karmic here? Am I being inappropriate? Well, like, we weren't touching, we weren't, like, we messaged very rarely, and the messages for me were very like innocent and childlike, but I thought it was that's the disappointing part, because I felt like we had a very childish connection, in the way that, like, I remember one day, like, he brought a book of poems, and I brought like one of my favorite rocks, and like we just kind of showed each other like a show and tell those items, and like how it was so interesting. I remember commenting later to him, like, such a weird thing, like, I'm just bringing my rock to show you, like, it feels like we're going to school, and like, you're gonna bring your favorite book, and I'm gonna bring my favorite rock, and like, we're gonna show and tell kind of stuff. And then I realized the book he brought was actually really inappropriate. It's a very explicit book from a woman who is very explicit in nature, and I realized this. I felt like that was the line. Am I comfortable with this? How do I react to this kind of writings? And it felt like it was like a test. It felt like it was a test, and it did challenge me to, like, because in the past, like, I've had issues with men in porn, and putting my foot down, and like thinking that I have to accept a man who engages in that. And I would have a lot of men that I date. I didn't date a lot of men, but a lot of the men that I did date, they were always looking at younger girls, and which is gross, and looking at other women. Like, they had no sort of like, like, this is inappropriate. I'm happy here. Why am I looking? Why am I still shopping? Why am I still window shopping when everything I have is right here? Why would I risk that? And it's just an immaturity that they were unwilling to. So it would also, like, in this environment, I got more comfortable speaking about what my expectations are as a person, and how I don't agree with men and engaging in porn. And I think, and I remember mentioning, like, we would get into these discussions with this man, and he was like, well, I mean, all men do it, or the majority of men do it, kind of acting like that was an excuse, like good enough. And it was in that moment where I'm just like, no, this is not okay. I don't need to, I don't need to pick this. I'd rather be single. Like, it was just a ick factor that was just like, the more I talked to this man who had put on some sort of pedestal based on the fact that he made money in a creative manner, I was just like, wow, he's not who I thought he was. He's very fake. He just got a very good costume. And I realized, sorry, what I said was, like, in the spiritual community, they'll talk about her being the karmic, him being my person. And that's where, like, a soulmate, and they really try to manufacture that, and get you into thinking, like, to pine after this person who is unavailable, like, and like you're meant to wait for him, and And well, I've been in this sort of like position before with a situationship because he was a narcissist who would play his partners off each other. Um, I had to stop this pattern and say, for one, this man is married. For two, this man is, I don't want someone fresh out of a relationship. That's messy, because the situation was, ship was messy before, because when I would get together with him, like a month after he had separated from this person, and what I thought he had finished dealing with her, he would go back to her. And then we would be like getting to know each other once again, not a label, not in a relationship, just, you know, reconnecting. I realized, and even when I'd ask if he was still talking to her, like he would make excuses about why he was talking to her again. And I was just like, what is going on here? So it was, he still had feelings. I was just a placeholder. I was just a reason to make her jealous. She was there to make me jealous. You know, it was that triangulation. I'm sure there's more of us. And then I recognized this married dude was just the same way. And then go to find out, like, he was actually, so what felt like was a beginning of an emotional connection, I put my foot down, because I had dealt with men in the past who claimed to be separated. And I was just like, what is going on here? And then they're leapfroggers. And I was so stupid at that time, like, to believe that, or even to like get near that. I just didn't have experience in life. And so at this time, I'm so proud of myself because I caught it. I recognized it, and I put a stop to it. But then when I put a stop to it, so by saying no to him, like, because it felt like he was going out of his way to speak, but I did enjoy his company. So that's where it's just like we were platonic. And I did enjoy, like, he was handsome, but I enjoyed I felt like we had good conversation, and, you know, and jokes and stuff. And that's fabricated, because that's not who he is. He's more like her. And that's where I could see, like, when you can't see the full mask, when you can't see who they are, see, that's where I'm saying, like, sometimes you don't see the smile without the smile. And sometimes you don't see, like, the sneer, you know, the lines of disgust. Sometimes you don't see that because they do want something from you, but they want it their way. And so when you start to say no, and you start to acknowledge, like, where I called that guy out on lies. I called him out on stuff. When I started calling him out, he started backing up. And then when I finally said, I don't want to talk anymore, like, through Messenger. And when I finally said, like, I don't want to be part of this drama, because that girl that he was attached to, she was going out of her way to make life hard for me. She was making up rules in the workplace to try to get me in trouble, and she was lying. And yeah, she was just going out of her way to be, you know, and she worked with the other people. She worked with the sexual harasser guy. She worked with my other girl that I had to work under in my area. And so, like, it was like a whole network of fucking narcissists. I refer to that factory as like the training camp for narcissists, because I learned so much, just different assumptions I had and different people and how they show up. And then I thought that I felt bad for him at one point, because I thought she was like, he wasn't able to see that side of her, and that he might not have, but I didn't either. I didn't see that side of him, and she was there to mirror him, you know. And so, like, when it finally I said no, I said, let's go back to cashier conversation, which I refer to, that was one of our inside jokes. Cashier conversation is like, you know, the conversation you have when you're buying something from the cashier. It's usually about the weather. It's very shallow. It's very Groundhog Day conversation, where it's like the same, like, the sexual harasser, he tried to create connection through Groundhog Day cashier conversation. So he would every day ask me about my lunch. Every day would come up and ask the same, like, he would just very similar, because they want to create like an everyday occurrence so that you feel codependent on them being there every day. And I got to one point with that guy, and I said, you don't need to ask me about my lunch every day. It's actually not that exciting, even though it kind of was, because I was doing carnivore for 4 months. And so when I didn't realize who he was, I didn't see that sexual harasser's full costume. You know, I didn't mind talking here and there. I just didn't need it all the time. Like, every time he'd walk by, he'd make a noise. So I would look up at him, and I got to the point where I just wore earplugs so I wouldn't hear any of the noises, and I could pretend to not hear him walking by. But like, every time he'd walk by, he'd whistle, he'd tap on something. And then this other guy did that too. Like to make me be known that they're in the arena, in the area, which is really weird. Just for attention, but like you don't want my attention, but you do. Like it was a really strange environment to work in. It was very draining because I felt like I had to wear my shield because like I didn't know where it was gonna come, what angle. So that's exhausting, wearing a shield every day for 8 hours and then feeling like the work that you do, you don't know if someone's gonna fuck with it. You don't know whether, you know, to the extent that they're talking to, and I really felt like I needed this job at that time. So I was just playing along because I'm like, I need this job, I need to pay my bills, and jobs were tight at that time. And then so after I said no in the messenger conversation, like this guy disappeared. And I like I said, well, you know, we'll just stick to casual conversation, which to me was like, you know, when I see you, I'll say hello. It's just not gonna, I'm not gonna give you details because it felt like I had been very vulnerable with him, with my life and things that I was experiencing. And so he was the one girl that he was hanging out, she hung out with the gossip girls. So now she's a gossip girl, but then she's also hanging out with him. So the girl who doesn't smile with her eyes is now hanging out with him. So she's a gossip girl too, because she hangs out with the gossip girls that I work under. So I'm sitting here thinking that I can trust him, but he's in bed with the girl that doesn't smile, who is also a gossip girl. You see? So like all the connections of who the people are. And then you got to think the people who are talking to them, who really maybe don't know much about anything else and don't seem related, but if they're still going out of their way to talk to these people, they're part of the gossip connection as well, right? And it's a factory. That's what they do. And so that time that I had disconnected from that time, it's interesting because it showed me how much he was going out of his way to walk by me all the time, to talk and to be in my visual space, because it went from nothing. It's like he didn't work there anymore. And it's so weird because he was just on the other side of the wall. And so it goes to show how much he was going out of his way, which that I don't think is appropriate either, because you are married. And I don't mind like saying hello and conversing, but and like if you're on the path, you know, I don't mind joking around to kill the time a little bit here and there once in a while. But like this guy was doing it a lot. And then it pushed him closer to her, which is kind of funny because like I think what I think happened was I think he had been involved with her previously. And when I showed up, I think he distanced from her then and got closer to me, thinking that, you know, that's that leapfrog energy. I think he thought he was going to try to work his way into my life. And that didn't happen. So then it kind of repulsed him from me and right back to her. Like it's like a boomerang. And now it really cemented their connection because he needed somebody to make him feel important. And he needed me to feel some sort of way by seeing him with her, because they were extra close. Like they went everywhere to that's what I mean, they went everywhere. It was weird. And I do think there could have potentially been some training going on there, but there was like, when I feel weirdness, I've learned to trust it, because anytime I felt weirdness, it's been right. My compass or my intuition is very accurate. Because I just don't make an assumption. I wait for things to pile up, to add up. I don't just like take one. But now I'm learning how to recognize where like this is happening. And like, yes, I take space, but I'm just like, there's a good chance that this is going to be like this, because all the things are kind of like, you know, it's like if you got all the ingredients of making a loaf of bread on the counter, you got the sourdough starter, you got the flour, you got the, I think, water, you got like a bowl, and you got like the bowl for the sourdough starter. Chances are you're making a loaf of sourdough bread. You know what I mean? That's like kind of all the elements were there, all the ingredients. Like now I'm just kind of putting things together. And now I don't have to invest so much emotionally into these situations. So like now I can see it and I can move on for a moment. I don't invest emotionally. I don't, like, that was a hard hit. That took a hard hit. I really thought he was going to be a friend of mine. Because up to that point, I just haven't found people who saw the world the way I saw it. And it's been very lonely because of that, because it feels like anytime I try to reach out and try to make a friendship with somebody or a connection, it's just like it's not on an equal playing field, and they feel the need to like lie and control me as opposed to like meet me where I'm at. And so that one hurt, because I really thought even some of the people in that workplace, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll meet some girlfriends and like be able to, you know, I don't know, do things that girls do together. I don't know what that is. And I'm not a shoes girl, and I'm not a shopper. I shop when I need something. I don't shop for a hobby. I don't have money. Yeah, so yeah, it was just really weird and interesting, and I learned a lot from that environment, but it was super traumatizing because like I said, I had that situation with him play out in regards to her. And so those were two people that were bullying against me now. Like they were going out of their way to just be unkind and cruel and just ugh. And then, you know, it's almost like because I felt like I didn't have any friends there, and then I would see them together being friends, it really made me feel some sort of way because I was just like, I could really use a friend right now. And just saying that is a little emotional, which is weird, but because it's happened so long ago. But the fact that he chose to partner with a predator, it meant he had some sort of predatory instinct in him as well. The fact that he chose her over me and being a friendship, and and what she was selling, so to speak, uh, you know, and then of course, like what do you call that? Like they enrolled other people, because it's gossip. It's full of gossip. They got nothing else to do. A lot of these people don't have hobbies, and are miserable or in miserable situations, so they just want to make their other people miserable. And so like in that whole afternoon shift, and it spread to like the day shift, because we'd come in to replace the day shift and we'd have to converse. And so like I was getting ignored by those people who I once talked to, and then in the midnights, like you could feel it happening there too. And it's like to the point where the sexual harasser started antagonizing me by like so the last call was like he had actually gone behind me and touched my butt, and I reported that. And this guy who is attached to the girl who doesn't smell with her eyes, he was a witness to this because I was talking to him about this, and so he witnessed it. So while he did confirm what I said was true, like he was not a witness. Like who wouldn't? Because like when this guy finally was ignored. We had like a distancing requirement supposedly by HR, which is 6 feet, and twice in one day he passed by within a foot of my body, and there's like it was like a 2 foot distance for him to get by me, 2 feet like that, about that. And he chose to squeeze by like that. And that's how it happened in the first place. So the idea is like, no, you can't be around me. And there was another way around. He also had a chance to call out to tell me, like, I'm coming by, to give me a chance to move. He didn't do any of that. He felt entitled. This is his workplace of 30 years. And it's his right to pass by me, because in his mind, his intention as a married man is not to touch me. But he was attracted to me. And he had leapfrog energy as well, just like the other guy. And that's when eventually, like, I recognized he was doing it again, where he was invading my space. He was getting closer and closer, and I had to leave because I reported it. HR did not do anything about it. And then so I had reached out to a number of like team leaders, and this guy, like, I thought, you know what, we had our differences, and it turned out he did move in with this lady, and they're in a full-blown relationship. So I was right about that. And so I was just like, you know what, you guys do, like, you guys are made for each other. I'm out, like, I don't want his attention at all. And so there was a time where I thought, we're good, like, you guys are happy doing your thing. And I thought he saw me professionally, at least in the workplace, because he seemed to be a really hard worker himself. I thought. I don't think that's true anymore. But so I just thought, I asked him along with 2 other people for references, and he sent me back an email like, you got to be kidding. And I was just like, okay, so this guy really, like, when you thought you were friends and like, well, something came between you, you don't think that someone goes to that level of like wanting you to be in a position of not being able to support your household. And so like, I thought he saw, like, because when I did deal with him, I was very professional still and very civil. I just don't like the way he maneuvered on a personal level, but I wasn't going to let that affect my job. And so I was like, we can be civil, but we can't, he cannot be civil. And so it just kind of showed me exactly how dark and where he was at, and that he was closer to her and than to me, and how I roll. And sometimes we place ourselves on other people, and so sometimes it's not just about them wearing a costume, but it's the potential we see in other people, and where we place them in life, and where we place ourselves lower. And I had to recognize that in that environment. And then so I had to leave. I had to leave that because the HR was not protecting me. I had receipts, but I couldn't do anything about it in the position I was in. And that guy backed this man, and that is gross. And this man has a daughter, and yeah. So, I, and I don't know, like, I don't know if there should be a standard, like, because you have a daughter, you should be even more aware of this kind of stuff, but I think you should. I think you should. I don't know. Like, I feel like men have their own issues that they gotta, there's some unsafe areas where I think, like, I hear about stories in high school and hazing and stuff like that and inappropriateness. Like, I mean, it's not just women, but it is a lot of women. Um, where it's almost like bred into us, like it's programmed into us to be a certain way and not speak up for ourselves and not stand up for ourselves and just expect behaviors. And now you got other women who are like doubling down on these events. And well, he touched me and I felt it was comforting. Well, good for you. I don't need to be touched at work. I'm emotionally balanced. I don't need to come to work to get my emotional fill from other people, and I'm quite healthy on my own, right? Like, so I don't know. These are all different ways where I recognized who people were and who they weren't. So I know I kind of started out the video like based on like facial expressions and stuff, but this is just things I picked up, body language, how close they are to other people. Are they voluntarily going towards those people? Like in the workplace, it can be challenging because you're like, well, this person seems different than the workplace I'm in, and everyone else is kind of the same, but this guy seems different, and give it time, don't rush in, and they'll tell you exactly who they are. Because I went into another workplace after that, and I didn't have to spend 2 years there. I spent 6 months there when I was calling this stuff out. And there's another person I thought there, and this guy I was interested in actually, and I thought, oh, he's cute, and I didn't know how young he was though. So that was like I was like, I don't know how old you are. He had old energy, and he had energy like me, where it felt like he was carrying the weight of the world, and he was very timid like I was. So it felt like he had been through some similar experiences. And I know I've been told I look younger than I am. So I'm like, maybe he's, closer to my age and he just looks a little bit younger. Because I didn't get to talk to him ever. But his behavior seemed very admirable. Like he was in a leadership role. But he was in with the Gossip Girls, and I can't roll with that. Like and the thing is too, okay, here's another thing. If you're in a workplace and you're trying to figure out who's who, if these people have been in these environments for like years, and I get there and I'm clocking this stuff within like a month to 3 months, okay? So if I'm clocking this in 1 to 3 months, and you people have been here for years, and you're still participating with the Gossip Girls, with the predators, that's what I mean. Like they're just as dangerous. And I've learned that. Like, you know what? This last place of work where I'm like, oh, I thought he was different, but like because of certain things. But if you can't, like when I had to put myself out